Okay, welcome back from break, everyone. I'm going to get started with this next topic of what is merit, and then we're going to talk about continued support on the path to enlightenment. As always, if you guys have questions, just let me know. I'll answer any and all questions you guys have. So this topic of what is merit, just to give you guys a heads up, what it is it's wholesome Kamma. Since you guys just learned about wholesome and unwholesome Kamma, it's wholesome Kamma, but it's a unique type of wholesome Kamma. That's why we refer to it as merit. So I'm going to explain to you the ins and outs of this, and I'm going to be using a lot of the words of the Buddha to be able to help you understand what this is. Okay, so what merit is it's the readiness and taking the action to frequently give something more than is strictly required or necessary, such as your time, effort, energy, and resources towards the continued development and sharing of the teachings of the Buddha. So this is generosity that is directed towards the continued sharing of the teachings of the Buddha. Sometimes people refer to this nowadays as pay it forward, that if you're kind of like involved in something and you're benefiting from something, that somebody might decide to make that opportunity available for other people by contributing to the continued sharing of something. So the Buddha taught generosity during his lifetime, and he taught to share, to be able to allow the teachings to continue to be prosperous in the world so that other people can benefit from the teachings. Now, keep in mind that the Buddha, prior to getting to enlightenment, he was a prince destined to become a king. He had all the royal riches that you could ever imagine. So when he was teaching generosity and to share that in order to continue the teachings of the Buddha, he wasn't trying to enrich himself. He was already rich before, and he turned away from all of that. And he actually didn't even accept money during his lifetime. The currency at the time was gold and silver, so he didn't accept that. The only thing that he accepted was food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. Sometimes people would offer him land or slaves or servants and things like this, and he didn't accept any of these kinds of things. Even gold and silver, he wouldn't accept those kinds of things. So he'd only accept the things that it took for him to, in order to sustain his life. So food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. So the reason why he taught generosity is because he practiced an enormous amount of generosity during his life and his previous lives, and he knew that that's what led to his enlightenment, and he knew that it would also lead to your enlightenment. So that's why he taught generosity, because it's an important quality of mind that you need to cultivate in order to train the mind to let go. And when you're practicing generosity to produce merit, he taught that it would be wise to share in your time, effort, energy, and resources with what's referred to as the noble community. In the original teachings, he calls this the Aryan Sangha. This is the noble community. And the noble community is anybody who's in one of the 4 stages of enlightenment, or anybody who's practicing to get into one of the 4 stages of enlightenment. So by sharing your generous offerings with people like that, it allows the teachings to continue in the world, because those are the people who are practicing the teachings the closest. If you can imagine, during the lifetime of the Buddha, there were tons of people that were learning his teachings, but it wasn't everybody who was enlightened, and it wasn't everybody that was practicing the teachings very closely. You know, there's a core group of people around the Buddha that were practicing very closely, and they were getting to enlightenment, but then there were people in the outer fringes that weren't really practicing the teachings very closely. So whenever you're making offerings to a temple or a teacher or something like this, the Buddha oftentimes would say, practice merit towards virtuous teachers or virtuous monks or virtuous practitioners, that you would like to support the people who are practicing the teachings the closest. And he gave some guidance on how to do this, and I'm going to share that with you here. But just in general, understand that merit is generated by making offerings of food, water, clothing, shelter, medical care, time, effort, energy, financial support, and resources to help the teachings of the Buddha reach other people. Nowadays, we do accept financial contributions from people, because during the lifetime of the Buddha, he would actually live with his students. His students would invite them into their house, and he would live there for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, and then he would teach the family and he would teach the villagers, and there would be somebody right there. If he needed food or some other thing, somebody would be able to provide it to him. Where nowadays we don't necessarily do things that way, so people do offer financial support, so we can pay for water and electric and the things that we need, and food and clothing and things like this, to be able to support what we do. But what you should notice is any offerings that you're making to somebody, they should be using a portion of that for themselves to sustain their life, their basic necessities. But then you should notice that there's things that are coming back to the community, and that they're using those resources to be able to help the community to learn the teachings. Okay, so I've got this diagram in here to be able to help you understand what merit is. Essentially, it starts here with the practice of generosity, because you're going to need to practice generosity in order to get to enlightenment. An enlightened being isn't stingy or selfish. They're not holding on to things tightly. But you need to do that from the middle way, where you're not extensively sharing and you're depleting your resources, but you're also not stingy and selfish either. You would like to come to the middle with this. So this is a diagram to be able to help you to understand what is merit. And it starts here with this generosity. You ask yourself, when you're practicing generosity, where you're giving and sharing your time, effort, energy, and resources without any expectation of anything in return, was this an offering to a teacher to support the continued sharing of the Buddha's teachings, helping others to attain enlightenment? And if the answer is no, you're experiencing these benefits. You're eliminating craving, desire, attachment in your mind, and you're generating wholesome results, progressing closer to enlightenment by eliminating your own selfishness and sensual desire. You're producing wholesome Kamma in this situation. So you're going to need to practice generosity with people around you, even people you don't know, right? You're going to need to practice that generosity, okay? So this is what we call generosity, and this is going to help you. But if you're practicing generosity, and it was for the benefit of sharing the teachings of the Buddha with others, then the benefits here is you're still eliminating craving, desire, attachment in your own mind, and you're generating wholesome results to progress closer to enlightenment, but you're also helping people to be able to get access to the teachings and be able to learn themselves and be able to get closer to enlightenment, eliminating their discontentedness. And that's one of the best things that you could ever do for somebody, is help somebody to be able to get access to the teachings. Now, when you're doing that, that's merit. That's what we call merit. Okay, so you can understand the difference between just generosity that you might practice with anybody and everybody versus merit, which is generosity you're practicing in order to help the teachings of the Buddha continue in the world. And there's many different ways that you can practice generosity to help the teachings of the Buddha be shared in the world. So we'll talk about those as we go. Okay, so here's some words from the Buddha where he's teaching you about the types of individuals that you could make offerings to in order to produce merit. I'll read this to you. It's titled, "An Unsurpassed Field of Merit for the World." Monks, these 8 persons are worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of reverential salutation, an unsurpassed field of merit for the world. What 8? The stream enterer, the one practicing for the realization of the fruit of stream entry, the once returner, the one practicing for the realization of the fruit of once returning, the non-returner, the one practicing for the realization of the fruit of non-returning, the arahant, the one practicing for the realization of the fruit of arahantship. These 8 persons, monks, are worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of reverential salutation, an unsurpassed field of merit for the world. So I'm just going to pause here for a moment. What he's talking about is these 8 individuals that it would be wise for you to make offerings to. If you guys were here on Monday, you might notice that he's referring to the 4 stages of enlightenment. This is stream entry, once returner, non-returner, and arahant. These are the 4 stages. And what he's saying is anybody who's in one of the 4 stages, or anybody who's practicing to get into one of those 4 stages, those will be the people you would like to support in order to help the teachings continue in the world. Because somebody getting to enlightenment is the very best thing for that person, but also for all of the world. Because if that person does decide to teach, then the teachings can reach more and more people. But even if they don't decide to teach and they actually just get to enlightenment, this is really helpful to have enlightened beings in the community, because as they interact in the community, more and more people can see what it's like to function as an enlightened being. So these are the 8 persons that he's talking about. And he gives guidance beyond this to talk about the types of individuals to make offerings to. I'm going to share some of that with you here, but I'll give you just kind of a little bit of a summary. One of the things he suggests that you do is that you look at the quality of somebody's mind, that if they're learning and practicing the teachings, their mind would be very clear, very concentrated. That he talks about this muddle-mindedness. If you notice that someone's mind is kind of muddled and they don't really know the teachings very clearly and they're not able to explain the teachings very easily, this is because their mind is still polluted and they're not actually practicing the teachings very closely. But for someone who's eliminated their pollution, they're going to be able to talk very clear, very concise, very precise. They're going to be very focused and concentrated. They're not going to lose their train of thought constantly. So if you're noticing somebody like that, it means that they haven't really practiced the teachings very well and they're muddle-minded. So the Buddha suggests, because you're not going to know how to tell whether someone's enlightened, and you're not going to necessarily be able to tell whether someone's in one of these 4 stages or not, when you're first getting started, he talks about just looking for someone who isn't muddle-minded, who has concentration and focus and clarity in their mind, and they can discuss the teachings with ease. This is what you would like to look for. But this is ultimately what he's teaching, and he teaches what I just shared in other places as well. And then he goes on here. He says, these 8 persons, monks, are worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of reverential salutation, an unsurpassed field of merit for the world. The 4 practicing the way, the 4 established in the fruit. This is the upright community, composed in wisdom and virtuous behavior or moral conduct. For people intent on sacrifice, for living beings seeking merit, making merit that ripens in the acquisitions, what is given to the community bears great fruit. So what he's talking about here about the upright community is that during the lifetime of the Buddha, there were multiple people who were teaching. You might think that during the lifetime of a Buddha, he's the only one teaching. Because if a Buddha existed during your lifetime, you'd probably be interested in learning from that person, right? But not everybody knew that he was a Buddha, because there's not like an outward characteristic, like a turned ear or a mole or something like this, that you could identify like, that's a Buddha, right? Not everybody knows how to determine whether someone's a Buddha or not. So there were other people that were teaching, and they were claiming that it was their teachings that led to enlightenment. But the Buddha knew that it was his teachings that led to enlightenment. So there are all these different people were trying to kind of make their way to enlightenment. There was the Buddhist students, and then there was all these other students of other teachers. So the Buddha would refer to his community as the upright community or the straight community, because he knew that they were practicing the true way to enlightenment. And that's what he would refer to them as composed in wisdom and virtuous behavior, because he knew that they were the ones that were practicing the wise way. And then he says, for people intent on sacrifice, for making merit that ripens in the acquisitions. What he's talking about here is the acquisitions are you getting to one of the 4 stages of enlightenment. If you're practicing merit, where you're making offerings to someone in one of the 4 stages of enlightenment, what that means is you're coming in contact with somebody that has the wisdom of how to get to those stages of enlightenment. So if you're making a gift to, say, an enlightened being, that means that you can sit down and talk with that person. You can build a relationship with that person, and you can figure out what did they do in order to get to enlightenment, because you're interested in experiencing that too. Or if you're talking with someone in the 2nd stage of enlightenment, same thing. You can sit down with this person and talk with them and build a relationship and get to know them and learn more and more about what it takes. So that's what he means by making merit to making offerings to one of these 8 people. It ripens in the acquisitions. It ripens in you being able to actually get to one of these 4 stages of enlightenment as well. That's what he's talking about here. Then he says, what is given to the community bears great fruit. What he means by that is any offerings that you give to a teacher, as I mentioned, they should be using a small portion of that to sustain their own life, but you should see things coming back to the community. You should see classes and courses and retreats being offered regularly at no cost. You should see a nice, comfortable center in which to learn in and grow in and develop in. You should notice these kinds of things coming back to you. You should notice that a teacher's willing to spend their time with you to be able to help you and guide you along the path, and they should be willing to do this at no cost. If anybody's charging for their teachings, they're not understanding what it takes to be able to get to enlightenment. In order for an individual to get to enlightenment, they need to practice a certain amount of generosity. And if someone's not able to practice generosity, if they're just paying for a course, maybe $500 for a week or 2 of a course, they haven't practiced generosity in that situation, and it's not helping them to be able to get to enlightenment. And for anybody who's actually gotten to enlightenment, they know how impactful that mental state is and how beneficial it is for all people in the world. And there's different people that need these teachings. And as soon as you put a price tag on your courses, you basically have blocked off disadvantaged beings, people who are struggling the most and having the most difficulties in the world, that lack financial resources. As soon as you put a price tag on your course, they're not going to be able to access your course. So if a course was like $1,000 for a 1-week course, those people that don't have that money can't get that course. And now they're stuck. How are they going to get the wisdom to be able to improve their life? So anybody who's enlightened would understand this, that they would like to make their teachings available for anybody and everybody. And they wouldn't actually put a price tag on their courses and their classes and retreats and their personal time and the resources that they share. That if they truly have figured out how to get to enlightenment, they would be willing to share that with everybody and anybody without any expectation of anything in return. So that's what the Buddha is sharing here, is that what's given to the community bears great fruit, meaning that if you're truly supporting the people who are getting to enlightenment, it's going to be beneficial for countless people in the world. So this practice of generosity is what helps to eliminate craving, desire, attachment in the mind. This is the cause of discontentedness and the cause of rebirth. So by you eliminating craving, desire, attachment through the practice of breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity, that's what's training your mind to let go and eliminate craving, desire, attachment. It does what the Buddha describes. He says it eliminates the stain of selfishness. He refers to the selfishness in the mind as a stain, like a pollution. So by practicing generosity, you're eliminating that stain. As you develop on the path to enlightenment, you might get to a point in your development, if you keep going, where you don't have any doubt in the teachings of the Buddha. The more you investigate and examine the teachings and you see that they actually work to improve the condition of your mind, you'll get to a point where you have no doubt that these teachings are leading to an improved condition of your mind in your life. But when you first get on the path to enlightenment and you're first starting to learn, people have doubt. This is normal. You might doubt the Buddha, his teachings, the community. You might doubt your teacher. You might doubt your own ability to get to enlightenment. This is normal. And this is a hindrance to your enlightenment, is this doubt. But the way you eliminate doubt is not through blind belief or faith. Instead, you eliminate your doubt through investigation of the teachings, through examining the teachings. Because the more you investigate and examine them, you'll see that they're true, because you'll be able to independently verify that they're true. And then when you're practicing his teachings and you're seeing the transformation to your mind, this is where you really know that they're true, because you can see in situations where you're once angry or bitter or hostile, you're no longer experiencing those same type of feelings, that you're quite peaceful and quite joyful in those situations. And this is where eventually you'll eliminate your doubt. And as you're doing that, you might decide like, wow, I'd really like to see these teachings be available for other people so that they can experience this improved mental state that you're experiencing. So as you're learning and growing on the path to enlightenment, you might decide to allow these teachings to be available to others by supporting the teachings and supporting a center or a teacher to be able to share the teachings. And as you're doing that, that's what's called merit, when you're sharing your time, effort, energy, and resources to be able to help the teachings of the Buddha be shared in the world. Now, there's this misunderstanding about merit that you're going to see. You'll see it here in Thailand, and you'll see it in other places too, is that people think that you can transfer your merit, that if you make an offering to a temple or a teacher, whatever beneficial deed that you just did, you can transfer the benefit of that to somebody else. They actually have a little ceremony that they do here in Thailand. You might have seen it. There's these little urns of water. And when you make an offering to somebody, they might gesture to this little urn. And then you kind of like pour out this little urn of water while they're chanting. And they think that they're transferring their merit to somebody else. And this isn't actually possible. Remember, the teachings of the Buddha don't have any rites, rituals, ceremonies, or worship in them at all. And then also, if you understand what the Buddha taught on the natural law of Kamma, that whatever decisions you make, you're experiencing the results of that. You can't transfer it to someone else. And if you understand what you're actually benefiting from by practicing generosity and producing merit, is you're eliminating craving, desire, attachment in your mind. That's what's occurring for you. And you can't transfer that to somebody else. It's just not possible. So you might be in situations where people are doing these rites and rituals and ceremonies in order to transfer their merit to somebody else. But it's just a misunderstanding of the teachings of the Buddha. And you'll see this prevalently throughout Thailand and throughout other places. But the Buddha never actually taught this. So if you understand the natural law of Kamma and you understand merit and what is actually occurring, then you understand you can't transfer the benefits of that to somebody else. So you might see this from time to time. Okay. And we call it Quat Nam in Thai. You might hear someone say, oh, let's do Quat Nam, which is they think the transference of merit to somebody else, but it's just not possible. Okay. Here's some more words from the Buddha on if you're going to make an offering to somebody. So if you'd ever would like to make an offering to somebody to support the teachings of the Buddha, he talks about 3 things that the donor should have and 3 things for the recipient. What he's saying for the donor is that whenever you're donating, before you give, your mind should be joyful. And then while you're giving, your mind should be calm and confident. And then after you give, your mind should still be joyful. Essentially, what he's teaching you to do is think about an offering before you offer it and be joyful in the offering that you're making. Like you feel like you put some thought into it and it's like, hey, this is what I can offer, right? You're not offering too much. You're not offering too little. It's like, hey, this is what I can offer. And now when you make your offering, you can be calm and confident in that situation. And then you can be joyful after giving. Whereas if after you gave, you're like, oh, I gave too much. Why did I give so much? Now I don't have the food for myself. Oh, what did I do? Right? Or if you're like, oh, I didn't give enough. I'm so selfish. Why don't I give more? Oh, this is like remorse, right? You're not interested in that. So if you're joyful before giving, it means you've put some thought together in what it is that you're going to offer. Now you're calm and confident when you offer because you know like, hey, this is what I can offer. And then after you offer, you're still joyful, right? Because you put some thought into this and you don't have remorse any longer, right? There's no remorse in the mind. So that's what the Buddha is teaching you here, to how to protect your mind in terms of making an offering. Then he says the type of person that you would like to make an offering to is someone who is free of craving, anger, and ignorance, or someone who is practicing for the removal of craving, anger, and ignorance. Because if someone's free of craving, anger, and ignorance, that's an enlightened being, right? Because that mind has been completely purified. If someone's practicing for the removal of that, then you'll notice that they're working diligently towards eliminating their craving, anger, and ignorance. And this is how you would like to do that, is you would like to do this in a non-judgmental way. You would like to kind of spend some time with the person that you're potentially going to make an offering to, right? Because you need to get wisdom from this person to get help, right? To be able to get to enlightenment yourself. So if you go somewhere and you see like a teacher or ordained practitioners being rough and bitter and hostile and harsh, or you see them smoking cigarettes or gambling or using drugs and alcohol or using unwise speech and things like this, you know that they're not practicing the teachings very well. And not that you should ever judge those people. You shouldn't look down on them, but just understand that they're probably not practicing the teachings very well. I've been places where I've seen ordained practitioners hitting dogs or smoking cigarettes or gambling. I've even talked to monks that are drunk before. They are intoxicated, right? So when you see these kinds of situations, you would like to choose wisely that, hey, I'm not going to make an offering to this person, not because you're judging them, but you just know that if you make an offering to someone and they're going off to gamble or use drugs and alcohol or something like this, that's where your offering's going. You would like your offering to be beneficial for the community to continue to grow and thrive and develop. And if you're looking at the individuals that you're potentially going to support and you see that their mind is either free of craving, anger, and ignorance or practicing for the removal of that, then you can be assured that your offering is going to a place that can be beneficial. Thailand takes this kind of thing very seriously, right? There's actually a situation several years ago where there was a monk who did have a bunch of craving, and this individual was in the news because they were spending their money that they were getting as an ordained practitioner on things like Fendi bags, Gucci sunglasses. They were taking a charter airplane around, doing different things. And the Thai people got wind of this, and the police went to go arrest him. And then he escaped. He left Thailand. He went to the USA. They put a Interpol warrant out for his arrest, and the U.S. police arrested him in California, and they extradited him from California back to Thailand, and they put him through the court system. He was found guilty of fraud, and he was sentenced to 20 years in prison for using the money of the community to enrich himself and buy these things, right? So Thailand takes this very, very seriously. And if there's somebody out there that's doing that kind of stuff, the Thai authorities will find that out, and then they will take care of that situation. These kinds of things were happening during the lifetime of the Buddha too, not to the extent of Gucci sunglasses and stuff like that, because they didn't have that kind of stuff back then. But the Buddha actually teaches a discourse about this. He talks about him being a cow, and if he's walking on the soft earth during rainy season and he's leaving his hoof prints in the earth, and there's a donkey behind him, and this donkey is putting his hooves in the same hoof prints, and the donkey is thinking, I'm a cow, I'm a cow, I'm a cow. Just because the donkey's putting its hoof prints in the same hoof prints as the cow, and the donkey thinks, I'm a cow, does that make the donkey a cow? And the answer is no, it doesn't make the donkey a cow. So what he's basically teaching is just because someone's wearing an orange robe and shaving their hair, that doesn't mean that they're a monk. Right? What determines whether you're a monk or not is your actions, is how do you function in the world? What kind of wisdom do you have? Just because someone's wearing white clothes and shaves their head doesn't mean that they're practicing the teachings very closely. This is where you need to have the wisdom to observe somebody, not in a judgmental way, but just observe somebody and look at their practice and see, are they polite? Are they kind? Are they friendly? Are they respectful? Are they sharing the teachings in a way that's beneficial to other people? Are they trying to help people to actually get to enlightenment? Do they have resources and the ability to help people along their journey? And if you see these kinds of things, that might be someone that you decide to support. But don't support the donkey, support the cow, right? That's what you'd like to do. Okay? So this is the Buddha giving you the guidance on that. The Buddha teaches something called the way of practice. All these teachings that you've been learning throughout this course, like the Eightfold Path, the 5 precepts, meditation training, and all the other things that I've been teaching you, you're going to need to learn all those things in detail and be able to practice them. But the Buddha was asked at one point, essentially like, hey, can you just boil this down to what can I be doing on a day-to-day basis to be practicing to be able to get to enlightenment? I just need to know what are the simple things that I can be doing on a day-to-day basis to get to enlightenment. Well, it's the Eightfold Path and all the other things that you need to be able to get to enlightenment, but this is what he said. He basically said to practice generosity, moral conduct, and meditation. This is called the way of practice. These are the 3 things that you'd be like to be doing frequently every day. You like to be practicing generosity, where you're giving and sharing more than is strictly required in any given situation. And you like to be doing that frequently, right? Just going into the store, someone's walking behind you, you can hold the door. That's generosity, right? Somebody drops a wallet on the floor. Hey, sir, ma'am, you dropped this. This is yours. That's generosity. Maybe you're going to the market, you pick up a little snack for your mom or your dad or your brothers or your sisters. This is generosity, right? So it doesn't have to be money. You don't have to exhaust your resources to do this, but each day you'd like to be looking for something to do, to be able to practice generosity. You come outside in the morning on your way to work, you see that your neighbor's trash can has been blown all over the neighborhood and there's trash everywhere. Maybe you take some time to pick up some trash and put that away. That's generosity, right? So the Buddha teaches you to practice generosity daily. This is a frequent practice, and this is training your mind to let go. Then he teaches you to practice moral conduct. Moral conduct is your right speech, right action, and right livelihood. As long as you're causing harm through your moral conduct, it's producing unwholesome kamma or unwholesome results, and you're going to need to deal with that during your day-to-day life. It's unwholesome kamma that you're going to have to extinguish. So as long as you're putting out all this unwholesome kamma, as long as you're putting out this unwise moral conduct, you're going to have to deal with that. So instead of like going to clean up the mess first, what the Buddha teaches you is shut down the pipe, right? If the pipe's spewing water and oil all over the place, shut down the pipe. Stop spewing this oil and water all over the place, and then go clean up the mess, right? That's the way you would do it. So by shutting down your unwise moral conduct, this is shutting down the spewing of this water or oil all over the place, right? So by improving your moral conduct in all your relationships where you practice right speech, right action, and right livelihood, this is going to shut down the unwise things that you're doing in the world that's producing unwholesome kamma. And you would like to focus on that on a day-to-day basis, improving your moral conduct. Then he teaches you to meditate every day. He meditated 3 times a day. So this is what you would like to be doing to be able to cultivate the mind, is this meditation is going to train your mind to cultivate certain wholesome qualities and eliminate certain unwholesome qualities. And that's what's going to then help you to be able to implement the moral conduct. If you didn't practice the mental discipline, you wouldn't be able to implement the moral conduct. So by practicing generosity, moral conduct, and meditation each day, you're gradually making your way to enlightenment. And in more detail, you're going to need to know the Eightfold Path in detail, right? But this is like a summarized way of what can I be doing every single day to get to enlightenment. And this is what the Buddha teaches, is generosity, moral conduct, and meditation. This is the way of practice, okay? So now some more words from the Buddha about generosity. This is a teaching that when I ran across it, it was like very impactful for me. So I'll share it with you because I think it's really helpful. It's titled, If Beings Knew the Results of Giving and Sharing. Monks, if beings knew, as I know, the results of giving and sharing, they would not eat without having given, nor would the stain of selfishness obsess them and take root in their minds. Even if it were their last bite, their last mouthful, they would not eat without having shared it, if there were someone to share it with. But because beings do not know, as I know, the results of giving and sharing, they eat without having given, and the stain of selfishness obsesses them and takes root in their minds. Okay, so what he's talking about here is the results of giving and sharing is the enlightened mental state. And he says, because beings do not know as I know the results, meaning how peaceful and how joyful the enlightened mental state is, they eat without having shared it. The stain of selfishness obsesses their mind. But if beings knew as the Buddha knew how peaceful and joyful this mental state is, they would not eat without having shared it. Right? So the Buddha is teaching you to give and share because that's what it took for him to get to enlightenment. And he had to practice a certain amount of that, and you will too, right? You're going to need to practice generosity with the people around you, but you still need to do that from the middle way. Don't allow that stain of selfishness to obsess the mind. Understand that there's this peace and this joy that is waiting for you. And while you need to practice multiple qualities of mind, generosity is just one of those qualities that you're going to need to practice. So that's what he's teaching you here. And because he happens to be talking about food, I think it's wise to note that here in Asia, we pretty much share our food all the time, right? Like if you're living in a typical Thai household, when you eat, all the food goes in the middle, and everybody kind of eats together. And you take like 2 or 3 spoonfuls of food, you put that on your plate, and now you eat those 2 or 3 spoonfuls of food, and then you take another 2 or 3 spoonfuls of food, and then you eat that. And at the end of the meal, everyone might not be full, but everybody had a little bit of food. Because some of these places in Thailand, they don't have enough money for everybody to be full at the end of their meal, right? They're living in poverty. So if they put the food in the middle and everybody takes 2 or 3 spoonfuls and you just eat whatever's in front of you, then at the end of the meal, everyone might not be full, but everybody had a little bit of food, and we didn't hoard the food. Where oftentimes in the West, we will tend to kind of hoard our food. So if you get more and more used to putting food in the middle and sharing it, or even if you're eating a certain dish, like maybe you're eating soup and it's not usually something that you easily share, you might have like some crackers on the side and you like offer your crackers to other people, right? This is like a good way to share. Or say you're in a group of people and you go get a bag of potato chips, you might pop open the bag of potato chips and say, hey, would anybody like a chip? And then you send the bag around. And if the bag comes back and it only has 1 chip in it, okay, just go get yourself another bag. Right? You just shared some chips, right? No need to hoard these kinds of things. So food is a great thing to be able to share because from our animal existences where animals hoard food, human beings, we're not animals, we're humans, but our consciousness in the unenlightened state functions very much like an animal. And we tend to hoard food in the unenlightened state. You might see this with your own practice. So where you're seeing that, you would like to share, right? Or say your clothes are ripped, like you come out of the dryer and you see your clothes are ripped and you see you get frustrated about this. This means you're attached to your clothes. Maybe you'd like to start sharing your clothes, give away your clothes, some of your clothes, or maybe let people wear them. Or maybe you notice like when your jewelry, there's certain jewelry that you have that you get shaken up when you don't know where it's at and you see you're attached to your jewelry. Maybe you need to give away some of your jewelry or let somebody wear it for a period of time. And this can help your mind to let go. If you're noticing certain things that you're holding on to, like maybe your car, and you just really are obsessed with your car and you don't want anybody around your car, maybe you need to let some other people drive your car, right? This will help you to train your mind to let these things go. Okay, so there's different types of generosity that you can practice, and wherever you see your mind holding on to any particular thing, you can share those things with people, and then this will help your mind to let them go. Here's some words from the Buddha where he talks about 5 benefits of sharing. I'll read this one to you. It's called 5 Benefits of Giving. Monks, there are these 5 benefits of giving. What 5? One is dear and agreeable to many people. Wholesome persons go in large numbers to one or to you. One acquires a wholesome reputation. One is not deficient in the householder's duties. With the breakup of the body after death, one is reborn in a good destination, in a heavenly world. These are the 5 benefits of giving. By giving, one becomes dear. One follows the duty of the wholesome. The wholesome, mentally disciplined monks always go in large numbers to one. They teach one the teachings that dispels all discontentedness, having understood which, the taintless one here attains nibbana, or enlightenment. So this is referred to as the 5 benefits of giving. And this isn't the only 5 benefits of giving, but these are the 5 that the Buddha chose to speak about here. And when you're giving and sharing, as I mentioned to you, there should be no expectation of anything in return. But what the Buddha is teaching you is this natural law of Kamma, of cause and effect, that whenever you're making a certain decision, there's going to be certain results. And here he's just showing you that, hey, if you give, these are the kinds of things that you're going to experience, because that way you can learn the natural law of Kamma. He's not telling you that you should want these things. He's just showing you, hey, if you choose to give, these are the things that are going to occur as a result. And now you can see the natural law of Kamma more closely. All of these are pretty self-explanatory, but I'm going to hone in on number 5 because this one people are sometimes needing help with. You notice he says, with the breakup of the body after death, one is reborn in a good destination in a heavenly world. The teachings of the Buddha aren't about an afterlife. You're not believing a bunch of things and then hoping you have some good existence after you die. In fact, the heavenly world, it isn't even a permanent existence. In the heavenly realm, these beings are in the cycle of rebirth. It's not a permanent existence. Beings are being reborn in and out of that all the time. The ultimate goal of the teachings of the Buddha isn't to get to heaven after this life. The ultimate goal of the teachings of the Buddha is to get to enlightenment now, in this life, so you can experience the peace and joy in this life. That's his ultimate goal, to help you. But the same things that lead to enlightenment are the same things that if you fall short of that, there's the potential to be reborn in the heavenly world. So when he's teaching something like generosity, that's what's going to lead to enlightenment, is you practicing generosity, along with other things too. But if you fall short for any reason of enlightenment, there's the potential to be reborn in the heavenly world. But even in that heavenly existence, you still need to get to enlightenment. You're not yet out of the cycle of rebirth. So that's the reason why he's sharing this. He's not sharing it because he's telling you that it would be wise for you to exist in the heavenly realm. In fact, the heavenly realm is not the ideal existence, because those individuals, they're still in the cycle of rebirth. They experience only pleasant feelings. In the heavenly realm, they don't experience painful feelings, or neither painful nor pleasant like we do here in the human realm. And these things tend to be a built-in motivation for us to get to enlightenment. When you're angry or sad or frustrated or feeling stress or anxiety, this is motivation for you to train your mind and actually make your way to enlightenment. But when you're experiencing nothing but pleasure, you tend to be complacent, right? And that's what happens with the heavenly beings, that they tend to be reborn into other realms because they're complacent. They're not practicing the teachings to be able to get to enlightenment. So the Buddha's not sharing with you that you should aspire to get to the heavenly realm. He's just saying, hey, if you practice generosity, these are the benefits that you're going to experience. And for some reason, if you don't get to enlightenment, there's the potential to be reborn into the heavenly world. But that's not something that you should ever focus on, because the goal isn't to actually get to the heavenly world. world. So this isn't the Buddha like dangling a carrot saying, hey, give me some financial offerings or give me some things and, then you're going to get to heaven. Because like I mentioned at the beginning, the Buddha didn't even accept gold and silver. People offered those things to him, but he wouldn't accept it. People offered him land and servants and people like this, things like this. One time somebody offered him a really fancy fabric and he accepted the fabric and he turned to his student and he said, go rip this up and sew it back together and then make a robe out of it, because he wasn't even interested in wearing this fancy fabric around. That he asked his student to rip it up and sew it back together so it wasn't so fancy any longer, right? So he didn't accept things in order to enrich himself because he was a prince destined to become a king. He had all the royal riches that you could imagine, but he stepped away from that life in order to live this life of homelessness where he shared the teachings with others. So here he's just sharing with you that this is a possibility, but this isn't what it is that you should be aspiring to do. What you should aspire for is getting to enlightenment in this life, not anything about a next life, right? And then here's something that I'll share with you. It's called gifts of the teachings is superior than gifts of material things. Monks, there are these two kinds of gifts, a gift of material things and a gift of the teachings. Of these two kinds of gifts, this is supreme, a gift of the teachings. There are these two kinds of sharing of material things and sharing of the teachings. Of these two kinds of sharing, this is supreme, sharing of the teachings. There are these two kinds of assistance with material things and assistance with the teachings. Of these two kinds of assistance, this is supreme, assistance with the teachings. All right, so this is the reason why I share the teachings, because it's the very best thing I could ever give you as a gift, is to help you get to this peaceful and joyful mental state where you don't experience anger and stress and anxiety and frustration and all these other discontent feelings. I can't give you enlightenment. It's not possible, but I can share the teachings with you that are going to help you to be able to get to that enlightened mental state. And that's what the Buddha is saying here, is that you could give someone all the material gifts that you could ever imagine, but that pales in comparison to giving someone the gift of the teachings. So you could go buy your parents a brand new car, a brand new house, take them on vacations and holidays and all these other things. That's nothing compared to making this gift of the teachings for other people, right? Like, in the way that we can share the gift of the teachings is by supporting them to come into the world. Because if there was two buttons, and this button, you could press this one, and your parents and your siblings and your people that are close to you would stay angry and bitter and harsh for the rest of their life. And then there's this other button that you could press where they would experience peace and joy and happiness and love and warmth for the rest of their life. Which button would you press? Number A or number B? Would it be B? Yeah, right? You'd press that one. Like, let's get mom and dad to peacefulness and joy. Well, you can't do that, right? We can't press a button and get mom and dad and brothers and sisters to be peaceful and joyful, but we can make the teachings available to people. We can share the teachings. And that's what the Buddha is teaching you as part of merit, is to be able to support the teachings so that other people can get access to them. And there's many different ways that someone might choose to do that. Sometimes people come here and they choose to sweep the floor, or they might choose to take out the trash, or they might choose to fill up the water, or they might choose to sweep outside or help out around the temple. Or some people have helped me edit podcasts before. Some people help make videos and things like this. There's all these different ways that you could help to share the teachings. And of course, some people do share financial offerings and help that way too. But whether someone ever does that or not, it's totally up to them. I don't have any expectation that anybody should ever share anything with me. I'm here to share the teachings of the Buddha with you, and I never have any expectation that anybody will share anything with me. But if you have shared anything with me, like if you're here and you're helping to keep the center clean, or you're making a financial offering or something like that, I'd just like to take a moment here to just say thank you to all of you guys for your generosity and your support for whatever it is that you're doing to help me, because as you're helping me, that's actually helping me to help you. because that's what I'm here to do, is I'm here to help you. So anytime you're helping me, you're actually helping me to help you and help others as well. Because my support and my help is not based on anybody giving anything to me. In fact, I have students all over the world that study with me. I've had people contact me by messenger from like a remote island off the coast of Africa. And they will say, David, we don't even have a library on our island, but we have the internet and I can access your books here. And this is like so helpful for me. I would like to just say thank you for making these books available for free online. I've had, again, people from remote villages in Africa that live on $50 a month that are learning my teachings. And I don't want anything from this person. I don't expect anything from this holders. So I'll share this one with you. But first, let me explain to you what a Brahmin is, because we haven't talked about that in this course. What a Brahmin is a Brahmin is like what we would probably consider a Hindu priest. These were individuals that existed during the lifetime of the Buddha, and they still exist today too. And what the public was taught is that they were taught that you couldn't improve your life, that in order to experience improvement in your life, you needed to go to this Brahmin, and this Brahmin was going to perform rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship for you. And now they were going to pray for you and do different things like this. And then you would go home and your life would get better. Right? And these people that were Brahmin, they were like 15% of society, and they were born into this family. So if you were born into this family of Brahmin, you were considered to be a holy person. And now you could do these rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, and nobody else could. It was only you that could do this. And the Buddha saw that this wasn't true. And this isn't what leads to improvement in your life, that people were going there, they were paying these Brahmin money, and they were doing rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, and they were going home and their life wasn't getting any better, right? And maybe today you show up and it's like, oh, that's $5 for that ceremony. And then you go home and then you come back and it's like, oh, today that ceremony is $10. Well, why? Oh, because I said so. And you can't do anything about it because you can't improve your life. It's only this Brahmin that could do something to benefit you and help you, right? So this bred a lot of corruption. So these Brahmin, while they were doing rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, they did teach a certain amount of moral conduct during their time that they would spend with people. And they would oftentimes be learning from the Buddha. So they would actually become somewhat kind of like students of the Buddha that were kind of like on the fringes. They weren't studying real deeply, but they were studying some amount of teachings with the Buddha. So the Buddha is going to share you this teaching about mutual support between Brahmin between monks, Brahmin, and householders. Householder is a household practitioner who's learning and living in a home. So he says, monks, Brahmins and householders are very helpful to you. They provide you with the requisites of robes, alms food, lodgings, and medicines in time of sickness. And you monks are very helpful to Brahmins and householders as you teach them the teachings that are good in the beginning, the middle, and the end, with the correct meaning and wording. And you proclaim the spiritual life in its fulfillment, in complete purity. Thus, monks, this spiritual life is lived with mutual support for the purpose of crossing the flood and making a complete end of discontentedness. So he's talking about this mutual support between the teachers and the students. Essentially, the way the Buddha set this up is that the students need help. So they're going to be coming to the ordained practitioners and the teachers to be able to learn the teachings that are going to help them in their life. But these people that have kind of like let go of worldly life in order to learn and develop their mind, they need help too. They need to be able to have support to be able to live and buy food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. So there's this mutual support between these two groups, that this group of people who have given up worldly life in order to gain more and more wisdom and get to enlightenment, they're kind of unplugged from society, so to speak, that they're not out there chasing after a career and all these kinds of things. They're just focusing on development of their own mind and development of wisdom. And we need those kinds of people in the community. But then because those people are being supported, they then give back to this group of people the wisdom of what it takes to improve their life. So there's this mutual support between these two groups of people. And this is the way that the Buddha ensured his teachings would continue in the world. Because if he taught these people how to get to enlightenment in they were maybe having a career and a business and all these other things, and these were his closest students, they wouldn't necessarily have any motivation to be able to share the teachings with other people. So like if I was working on the side and I had a business and I was making money through that business, then that person's priority would be to take care of their business. It wouldn't be to take care of the students. So what he taught us is to let go of worldly life and fully commit to sharing the teachings with others. But first, you have to develop your own mind to be able to do that. So you develop your own mind as an individual practitioner. The very best teachers are first excellent students. You have to be an excellent student before you can be a great teacher, right? So by you developing your own mind, then now you're sharing the teachings with others, and now those students are getting the help that they need, and they might choose to help you and support you at some point if they choose, right? So the Buddha taught it this way so that his teachings would continue in the world. Essentially, if these people don't share the teachings, they're not going to eat. You can't eat if you don't share the teachings. That's not the reason why you share the teachings, but essentially that's what is underlying all of this. Because anybody who's sharing the teachings, at any point, you could go back to worldly life if that's what you choose to do. But for someone who's very committed to sharing the teachings long term, they would be sharing the teachings far and wide and be able to help as many people as possible. So that's what the Buddha taught, is this mutual support between students and teachers. Okay, so this is what merit is, and this is how the Buddha taught it, and this is why he taught it. Do you guys have any questions on this? Anything here, anything online that you guys would like to ask? It looks like Janae has a question online. See, Janae's asking, why was the if beings knew the results of giving and sharing so impactful to your life practice? Because by that point, I understood the results of giving and sharing. I understood the peacefulness and the joy that the Buddha was talking about. And I also knew that in other times in my life, I was selfish. And I saw this connection in the teaching that the Buddha was sharing, and I understood instantly what he was saying, that he was talking about this peacefulness and joy of the enlightened mental state, and it's having let go of the selfishness that helps you to be able to experience that. So it was very impactful for me because I'd done these things, but I hadn't necessarily drawn the connection between the two of them. Okay, let's see if we have any questions on YouTube or Facebook. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions there. So what I'm going to do then is move into this little chat right here. It'll probably take me 5 or 10 minutes to help you guys to understand continued support, because it's great that we're spending time together like this and over the last several days, but nobody's going to get to enlightenment in 4 or 5 days, right? It's just not possible. It took the Buddha 6 years to get to enlightenment. So you're going to need continued support beyond this particular course. And I've set up in such a way that no matter where you are in the world, you can continue to learn and grow and develop and get support. I can tell you all kinds of stories of students that are learning with me in different ways. I'll tell you this one. There's this one student who came here and learned with me in Chiang Mai, and her husband ride around the world on bicycles, and they camp out in tents, and they don't even really have much of an internet connection, but that person can learn and practice the teachings. And in her tent at night, she watches the videos online when she can download those. She'll send me questions by emails, and I'll answer her questions and stuff like this. So I've set up in such a way that no matter what your lifestyle is, even if you roam around the world riding bicycles, you can still learn with me. What I've done is, from our website, which is a central hub, I have these books, audiobooks, videos, podcasts, and quizzes. You can use all of this at no cost. Then there's in-person and online classes, courses, and retreats where I teach here in Chiang Mai, but I also travel around the world in different places. And no matter where I teach, it's always going to be available at no cost. You're always welcome to attend any of the classes and courses that I teach. When somebody invites me to a place, I set it up in such a way that it's at no cost. So like I just got back from Mexico, that family supported me to come to Mexico. They paid for my flights and my food and all those kinds of things that I needed. And then they made the classes available to everybody for free. And I'm getting ready to go to California in a few months. The same thing. That individual is supporting me. That family is supporting me to come to California. And then they're providing me a place to sleep, and they're providing me food, because that's all I need. It's just to sustain my life. I don't ask for any money or anything. And these people are able to then offer the classes for free. So no matter where you're at, you'll see that when I'm teaching, it's always available at no cost. And if I'm teaching either here or somewhere else, there's a good chance that it's being live streamed too. That it's not just here that you can attend. Like right now, we've got people all over the world that are attending this class, even though I'm teaching here in Chiang Mai. So when I travel, I sometimes do the same thing. So like in California, I'll also be live streaming from there as well. So no matter where you are, there's a live class available for you. And where you can't attend the live class, it's recorded on YouTube, on Facebook, and then on our podcast. You'll be able to see it there too. So you can get access to all of these teachings in all of those different ways through in-person and online classes, courses, and retreats. There's 2 ongoing programs that are both in person and online. There's the group learning program, which is a 7-month program that goes through this first book, chapter by chapter by chapter. Every Sunday, I do a talk about a chapter in the book. And then on Wednesdays, I teach meditation and open up to any and all questions that you have. As I mentioned, you can get these books for free, or you can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here by reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order it on Amazon. So we just restarted the group learning program. So this is like an ideal time for you guys to join into it if you like, where each Sunday you can either come here at 9 a.m. Or you can attend online at 9 a.m. no matter where you are in the world. It's live streamed, or you can use Zoom or any of these other things. And I also teach it at 9 p.m. from my house, because like at 9 a.m. the people in Europe are typically sleeping, but at 9 p.m. they're awake. So that's why I teach it at 2 different time zones. And you can attend either here at the temple, you can attend online, or you can attend in the evenings online. And if you can't attend live, it's recorded. So you can watch it through YouTube, Facebook, or on our podcast. So that walks you through this first book and helping you to develop a real nice foundation in the path to enlightenment over a 7-month period. And that just keeps repeating over and over and over again. I've taught it like 7 or 8 times already. It just keeps repeating over and over. Then there's the Words of the Buddha, the Pali Canon and English Study Group. That's volumes 2 through 13. Where over a 1.5-year time frame, I go through slowly but surely on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. and Saturday evening at 9 p.m. So no matter where you are in the world, it's a live class, or you can watch the recording. And you can gradually make your way through that program. And you can join that program at any point. We actually just restarted that in July, but you can start it at any point. And now if you guys have taken this particular class pretty much all the way through, or maybe if you haven't taken it, maybe you go back and you watch the videos of this course, you can take any of these programs that you like. Once you have a foundation, you can move into any class or course or retreat. In fact, none of the classes and programs that I teach are dependent on you having known something else before. You can do any of the programs that I teach. You can just come right in and just start learning. The Pali Canon English Study Group, though, it really does help to have a foundation in order to go into that program. So that's why anybody in this course or any of the other things that I teach, you could easily go into any of these 2 programs and be just fine. Then from time to time, after you're learning in the courses, you're probably going to need personal guidance, because it's one thing to learn in class, but it's another thing to relate it to your specific needs and what you got going on in your life. So where you need personal guidance, you can just schedule online if you like using this website. You'll see the link to be able to schedule, and you can meet with me online no matter where you are in the world. We'll meet in Zoom. Or if you'd like to meet in person, if we're in the same city, you can just send me a message, or you can talk with me privately and say, hey, can we meet up at this time in this date and this location? And then we can just schedule a time. So if you'd ever like to meet in person or online, if you'd like to meet online, just schedule online. If you'd like to meet in person, just talk to me and we can schedule it and get together, and I'll help you with any kind of personal things that you'd like to talk about. We can meet at the temple, we can meet at a restaurant or a smoothie shop, at the park. Sometimes students even come to my house. If you'd like to come over there, it just depends on what's going on. We can schedule it from there. Then there's a Facebook group that a lot of students like to join, because it's set up like an online classroom where students ask questions and then I'm the one who replies and answers them. So there's nobody else that's actually replying to your questions in there. It's only me that's replying. But sometimes people like to get in there in order to ask questions, but they also like to get in there to look at other people's questions and see the answers. There's a lot of people who just read other people's answers to their questions, and this helps them to be able to learn. So if you'd like to get into the Facebook group, you can do that. And if you don't usually use Facebook, what some people choose to do is they just open up a profile in Facebook and they don't actually post anything. They don't even put a picture of themselves. They've got like a picture of a flower or a rainbow or something, and then they just come into the group and they just kind of learn in that group. So that's an option for you guys too. And as I mentioned, these are all available at no cost. There's never a time where I'll ever ask you for anything. I don't want anything from you. I don't expect anything from you. So you'll never hear me ask you for anything at all. I'm just here to give and share with you guys and help you on your journey. So any questions on this? Anything? Let's see. Okay. All right, so I don't see any questions anywhere. So we're going to break here for lunch and then come back in an hour and a half. And when we come back, I'm going to teach you how to integrate the teachings into your life. And then we're going to do kind of an activity. You guys have kind of gotten used to each afternoon that I guide you guys in meditation. So I'm going to teach you guys first how to integrate the teachings into your day-to-day life, because you would like to be able to do that, because that's where the real results are going to come. And then we'll do kind of an activity together as well, if you guys would like. So enjoy your lunch, and we're going to get back together at 1:45, which is an hour and a half from now. So perhaps we'll see you guys after lunch. Okay? Be well, and thank you.